I see you. Amarachi had always been different. The only child of her widowed mother, she grew up in a small mud house on the edge of the village. Her mother sold charcoal in the market, struggling every day to make ends meet. They barely had enough, but Amarachi never complained. From the time she was little, her obsession was not food, not clothes, not even playing like other children. Her dream was to become a nun. At 6 years old, she would tie old rags over her head like a veil, kneel before the wooden crucifix in their house, and clasp her hands in prayer for hours. Sometimes her mother would find her whispering, "I will marry Jesus, Mama. I will live for him alone." Her mother would smile faintly. But deep down, she worried. It wasn't normal. It wasn't ordinary. Years passed, and Amarachi grew into a quiet, beautiful young woman. Other girls her age dreamed of husbands, weddings, and children. But Amarachi still clung to that same childhood vow. "I want to be a bride of Christ," she would say firmly. Her mother tried to talk her out of it, gently at first. "Amarachi, you are my only child. I dreamed of holding your children, of having laughter in this house again. Are you sure this is the path you want?" Amarachi would smile softly, her eyes glowing with stubborn conviction. "Mama, it is my calling. I feel it every night in my prayers. Please don't stand in the way of God's will." Her mother would nod slowly, even though her chest ached with unease. She wanted to support her daughter, but every night she had strange dreams. Dreams of Amarachi, but not in white. In black, standing in a chapel that felt heavy with darkness, muttering words that sounded like prayers but weren't. She never told Amarachi this. She didn't want to discourage her. But the uneasiness never left her heart. When Amarachi finally turned 18, she begged her mother to take her to the convent. The Sacred Heart Convent was far, nestled in the hills, where no houses were found. The morning they set out, Amarachi wore her best dress, clutching her little rosary. Her mother held her hand tightly as they walked. When they reached the convent gates, the sight was both beautiful and intimidating. Tall stone walls, ancient and moss-covered, surrounded the compound. The iron gates stood wide open as if waiting for them. At the gate stood a nun, dressed immaculately in white. She was older, yet her skin was smooth, ageless. She introduced herself as Sister Agatha. Her smile stretched wide, but her eyes didn't. "Welcome, child. You've come to give your life to the Lord." "Yes, sister," Amarachi said eagerly, bowing slightly. Sister Agatha touched her head lightly, almost like a blessing. "The convent has been expecting you." Her mother's chest tightened at those words. Expecting her? How? Still? She embraced Amarachi tightly. "Be careful, my daughter. Serve God with all your heart. And pray for me." Amarachi smiled. "I will make you proud, Mama." As her mother turned and walked away, she kept looking back until Amarachi disappeared into the convent. Each step away felt like a piece of her heart was tearing. That night, back at home, Amarachi's mother had a dream. She saw a chapel. Not the small village church she knew, but a larger, ancient one cloaked in darkness. Dozens of candles flickered on the altar. Kneeling before the altar was a nun. Her head was bowed, her lips moving quickly, but the words were not prayers. They were dark, guttural chants that made the hair on her skin rise. Slowly, the nun lifted her head. Her veil covered her face, but through the fabric, two faintly glowing eyes stared directly at her. The mother woke up with a scream. She clasped her hands together, whispering, "Jesus, cover my child, please." Meanwhile, in the convent, Amarachi lay on her narrow bed in the dormitory. She was still adjusting to her new surroundings when suddenly, the bell tolled, once, twice. Midnight, her eyes flew open. She sat up, heart pounding. The other nuns lay motionless in their beds, as if they hadn't heard it at all. But Amarachi had. She crept to the window and peeped. She saw a shadow pass quickly. She quickly jerked backwards. When she peeped again, the shadow was no more. Her heart raced. She whispered a prayer, "The Lord is my shepherd." And just as she lay back down, trying to calm her breathing, she heard it, a voice, faint, but unmistakable, welcome home, child. Amarachi froze. The whisper had come from right beside her bed. Amarachi thought the first night in the convent would be peaceful. A holy place, filled with women devoted to God. What could possibly go wrong? But sleep refused to come easily. She kept hearing it again and again in her head, welcome, child. The next morning, the bell rang for prayers before dawn. The chapel was dimly lit with candles, their flames swaying as though an invisible breeze passed through. The other nuns chanted softly, voices blending in unison, but Amarachi's eyes strayed. They landed on Sister Agatha, tall, slender, with a face that carried both kindness and severity. Sister Agatha's presence dominated the room. Her eyes were closed in prayer, but Amarachi felt them watching her, piercing through her skin. She looked away quickly, clutching her rosary tighter, but the only stayed. Life in the convent was strict. Silence at meals, long hours of work, and endless rounds of prayers. But Amarachi found no peace. Each night, when she knelt alone, she felt the air grow colder. Sometimes, the candle before her would suddenly flicker out, leaving her in total darkness. Other times, whispers floated through the room, circling her like unseen spirits. She tried to tell herself it was her imagination, but deep inside, she knew something was wrong back in the village. Her mother wasn't sleeping well either. Since the night Amarachi entered the convent, strange dreams had plagued her. She saw shadows moving around her small hut. One night, she woke to the sound of footsteps outside. When she opened the door, there was no one. Only the faint smell of burning candles lingered in the air. Fear pushed her to her knees. She prayed harder for her daughter, calling on God to shield her. But as her prayers rose, a heaviness filled the convent. Sister Agatha and the other witch nuns were chanting, calling Amarachi's name in the spirit. Immediately her mother shouted Holy Ghost fire from her hut. They all fell to the ground. They knew something strong was shielding Amarachi, so they plotted harder to destroy Amarachi's mother. Inside the convent, Amarachi grew more unsettled. She noticed things no one else seemed to. During meals, when all heads were bowed in silence, she would catch Sister Agatha looking at her with that faint, chilling smile. Then one night, it happened. Amarachi couldn't sleep, so she sat quietly in her small room. She heard her name very loud. Amarachi. Curious, and a little afraid, she crept out. The light led her down a corridor she hadn't been before. It was late, almost midnight, but she could hear her name clearly. She got to the far end of the hallway and froze. There stood Sister Agatha, holding a candle. Beside her, 3 other nuns stood, their faces half hidden by the shadows. Their candles burned steadily. She wanted to turn back, but her legs refused to move. Sister Agatha suddenly lifted her head, her eyes glowing faintly red. Your mother's prayers is disturbing this convent. Amarachi gasped, stumbling backward. The candle flames flickered violently. She wiped her eyes, to be sure she wasn't dreaming, but when she opened her eyes, the hall was empty. No nuns. No voices. Just silence. She ran back to her room, her heart pounding. That same night, far away in her small hut, Amarachi's mother yet again woke with a scream. She had seen a dark shadow pressing on her chest in her sleep, whispering in a voice that sounded like a woman's voice. Struggling, she clutched her Bible and began to pray. The shadow hissed and disappeared, leaving her breathless. From that night, her health began to fail. She grew weaker, often clutching her head from sudden pains, but still, she prayed. Her prayers pierced through the walls of the convent, disturbing Sister Agatha's rituals, and in the chapel, when the nuns gathered again, Sister Agatha's face darkened. This woman. Her prayers must be silenced. We need to take her out of the way in order to initiate Amarachi, or our work will never be complete. But then, the prayers of a mother is a shield against all odds. Amarachi's mother never relented in prayers. One morning, after fasting for 3 days and holding midnight prayers, she decided to pay her daughter a visit in the convent. Immediately she got to the gate, Sister Agatha shouted from the hallway, "Stop that witch, she is a witch and she cannot come into this sacred place." Amarachi's mother was shocked. "Me? Witch? How? I'm only here to see my daughter. It's been a while, I miss her so much." Sister Agatha said to her, "Madam, you cannot touch the Lord's property. Your daughter now belongs to Jesus and this convent, you are not allowed to see her, and with that, she ordered the gateman to throw her out. Never to let her come close to the convent. That was when it dawned on her that something fishy was going on in the convent. That was when her dream started making sense to her. Back in the convent, Amarachi met Sister Agatha going back to her quarters. "Sister, bless you, I heard noises downstairs, what is going on?" Sister Agatha laughed softly. "Oh, that. The villagers caught a thief and was taking her to the village square. Don't worry, everything is fine, it's time for prayers, go to the chapel now." Watch out for part 2. Check my page for the next part and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.